Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get a sound check to make sure that you guys can hear me. Hello, everyone. All right, you guys can. So Happy New Year to you all, one and all. And every year I like to give an update to my testimony. And because we are launching Crusader 365 today, or the Crusade for Dominion, year one, day one starts today. And I think it's important for everyone to know who I am and where I came from, my weaknesses, my struggles, and how Christ rescued me. There is a hero in this story, and it's not me. In all of our testimonies, we are the villain. We may at times be the victim, but we are the villain. And Christ is the only hero. Okay. So I'm going to go through my story from the beginning to the end, tell you who I was, how I came to be the way I was, how Christ rescued me. And then, from the day that I got saved, my very, up and down Christian journey, which you'll find out once you get saved. It's not, hey, you're off into the wild blue yonder and it's all sunshine and rainbows. No, there's challenge and there are trials. So as I'm talking about my past, I'm not here to re-traumatize anyone, so I'm not going to go into gory detail. I'm not here to glorify any of my past sin. I regret it all and I lament it all. And I repent and beg for forgiveness for everyone who I've ever hurt, which is a lot of people. So my story begins with my grandfather, my mother's grandfather, my mother's father, my grandfather, Jerry. He was an orphan. His mom got pregnant out of wedlock in Newfoundland and gave him over to a notorious orphanage that a movie was made about called The Boys of St. Vincent's. And the Catholic priests there tortured, abused, and sexually molested those children. My grandfather was one of them. And this horribly soured him on religion for a very long time, for his entire life. And that had catastrophic effects throughout my family tree, which is on that side of the family rapidly shrinking. And it's down to next to no one. On my father's side, we had multiple generations of alcoholics, but my grandmother did have faith, profound faith later in life, and was a very strong Christian. That side of the family is doing way better. I wouldn't call any of them really Christian per se. They might be cultural Christians. I don't know how many of them are actually walking it out, but not atheist and dark, which is an enemy of God in every way, shape, or form. So my mom and dad had me. My mom was 16. She gave birth to me. Dad was 18 at that time. They were 15 and 17 when they hooked up, I guess. And, two very broken people who did the best they could, I imagine, with next to no discipling themselves. So my dad got lost into drugs and alcohol and crime for until his 30s, and now he's clean and sober and doing good. My mom went off into a cascading, dark life. Grandparents stepped in to try to raise me, and not here to bash my mom or any of those other things, but let's just say I developed an abandonment wound because nobody would fight for me. grandparents wanted me until my mom wanted me, and then my mom would take me, and then back and forth. And you know, as people, we want people to fight for us, to love us enough to like fight for us. And when nobody will do that, well, that's where we start acquiring abandonment wounds. So my father and my mom got divorced very young. My mom got remarried, had two more kids. One, my immediate younger brother had Down syndrome. His name is Brandon. My brother Ryan was the youngest. She got remarried, and I moved back in with her for a bit until that she caught her husband cheating on her, and that blew up. So I can't imagine being a young woman with three kids, one with Down syndrome. My mom chose, I believe incorrectly, she gave up Brandon to adoption to a wealthy family. She sent me to my grandparents, and she kept my youngest brother, which of course was another abandonment wound. Again, very broken person doing the best that they thought they could do. Okay. Also into the equation, once my brother was given away, that really scared me, and it made me a bitter, angry person. I remember drawing things in school that they actually sent me to a child psychologist, because my brother, who I love dearly because I didn't understand Down syndrome or any of that stuff, was just gone. And so I learned not to really trust anyone, because no one really seemed to want me. I also had dyslexia. I have dyslexia. But so I was held back in first grade. So I lost all my friends. And really struggled. Then a few years later, I found something that turned out to be a short-term gain and a long-term bust. I found a game that helped me unlock my reading potential. I always scored high on the tests, California achievement tests, et cetera, et cetera. But I discovered a game called Dungeons and Dragons when I was like in third, fourth grade. A friend of mine's older brother was playing it, and so he'd be desperate for other people to play with, and so he would tolerate us coming in and doing stuff. And this was the same house where we were exposed to drugs and porn and alcohol and everything else you can just imagine. So I went from 2 grades behind in reading to 2 grades ahead in reading in one summer by finding this game. This game was all about escaping your current reality and pretending to be something else somewhere else, which I was all about. That's where I encountered the first, what I would call my first concept of, of a holy warrior or a crusader there. There was a picture in the old player's handbook of a shining knight literally in hell killing devils and demons, and it was awesome. And I'm like, that's who I want to be. Instinctively, I knew I wanted to be that. That's not the way it played out. So, so I continued on with this game and continued to get more bitter. And I was indoctrinated in the public school system of Quincy, Massachusetts, and later on in Boston, where there was no case for creationism. I don't think I met a single real Christian until I was well over 20 years old. I encountered Catholics, but the Catholics were just like me. They weren't, they didn't change anything about their lives. They didn't, I still don't understand how all those kids went to CCD, their Catholic school or, Bible school, whatever you want to call it. They know nothing about the Bible. And they were acting worse than I was. So it was pretty convicting of the Christians I knew. And I also saw, this is where I came across my first pastors, which were the priests, the Catholic priests, which were the weirdest, slimiest, most plastic, creepy dudes I ever met in my life. I didn't meet a masculine Christian until decades and decades later. And again, this is part of what turned me off to Christianity. Now, I believe I really wanted a God because I was angry there wasn't one, because, all I could see was everything that was wrong and the bad things that had happened to me and those I knew. And I was just so angry. So I started listening. I got exposed to heavy metal. And my way of rebelling is I just listened to the angriest stuff I could find, which music. Music is a weapon of the enemy or a weapon for our Heavenly Father. And so I started listening to Slayer, which is satanic music, and so many other things. And somebody says, yeah, well, Slayer's all Christians now. Well, they need to repent because they've led countless people to hell. And I don't know if they're real Christians or not. I don't know them. But I went down a very dark path. Didn't believe in a God, but wanted to give him the bird anyways, and just did everything I could. I grabbed a copy of the Satanic Bible and read that at like 15, whatever that meant. One thing, my mom caught it, took it from me and burned it, which was the one thing I think I'm most thankful for her that she's ever done in my entire life. And I started lifting in the gym and hanging out with older guys, and I got into steroids and everything else, and I just started getting really jacked. And I started bouncing in nightclubs and again hanging out with older people, got an older girlfriend. And I thought, this is it. I dropped out of school in the beginning of 10th grade and got a job, Teamster job. I lied about my age, Teamster. So now I'm making good money. I told you the money I was making then compared to now, you'd be like, whoa, but yeah, I was making really good money back in 1990, 89. And I thought, hey, this is it. I thought my girlfriend would be there forever. And one day she broke up to me, and that absolutely shredded my heart. I did not handle it well. And I went, part of my heart died that day. And I said, okay, I'm not ever going to have this happen again. And I became a serial womanizer that day, a serial cheater, liar, everything. That was like the end. That pain, I never wanted to feel it again, and I never would trust anyone again. So my thought was, well, everyone's going to cheat on me someday. Everyone's going to leave me someday. So I'm going to cheat on everyone. So when they do it to me, I can laugh at them and say, well, yeah, you cheated on me with so-and-so, but I did it with 20 other people with you. Absolutely horrible, absolutely miserable. John Eldridge talks about this, and this is the father wound when my father left and started his own life with another family, which I understand, but it still crushed me. And the recession hit. I got laid off. Now I got to pay my rent, car payment, everything else. So I start throwing parties, charging $5 a cup for keggers at my apartment. Well, that didn't last forever, but as long as it did last, we kept doing it. And that wasn't enough. So then I started dealing drugs out of there, and which led to more women and more things. And I remember one day waking up, laying in bed, my nose hurt because I'd done coke. And I had paid a lot of money, staring at my ceiling fan at 10 in the morning, wanting to sleep. I thought how much money did I pay to feel this way? And I just became so filled with, horrified at what I'd become. I wanted to be a hero. I wanted to be somebody. And here I was, the word. It was terrible. So I decided right then and there that if I stick around, I'm going to be dead or in prison. So I didn't believe in God, but I did believe in my country. So I said, well, if I can serve my country, I can turn my life around. So I went and I figured I'm going to go serve in the hardest branch I can find and the hardest thing that I could ever do and redeem myself. If I can do that, then I can redeem from being the toilet that I had become. So I went and, the Marines had a really cool commercial with a chessboard and a dragon, and that was right up my alley. And I'm like, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Go to the Marines, and I only have a GED. And really bright kid. Could pull A's if I wanted to, but decided in other things, bouncing in nightclubs and hooking up with older girls was more important than dealing with teenagers in school. So I went and like, okay, the Marines won't take me. Maybe the Army will take me. I saw Rambo. Rambo had come out not too long ago, the second one, or it was maybe the third, or who knows. And I'm like, man, I'll go do that. They wouldn't take me. Like Air Force, what the heck am I going to do in the Air Force? Because I definitely didn't want to go in the Navy. The Navy was where all the gay guys went, in my opinion. I don't want to be in a boat with a bunch of dudes. So the Air Force wasn't even there. They never showed up for work. Every time I went, they were closed. So finally, I'm like, okay, it looks like it's the Navy. A friend of mine, Dave, was CB, and he wasn't on a boat, and he got to build stuff and learn to trade and got to carry a gun and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, I'll start there. We'll see how it goes. Go to the Navy, and they wouldn't take me. But they took my number and said sometimes programs come up. So they called me a few months later and said, hey, come down. We want to see how dumb you are. Take this test. Well, I come down, I take tests and smoke it. Now they're all calling me. And I said, well, Navy's the first one who gave me a chance. I'm going to give him a chance to offer me a cool job. So I'd go down to MEPS and they asked me, okay, you want to be? And I said, I want to be a CB. And they're like, CBs are full. I'm like, well, better come up with something quick because everybody else wants me now too. So they tried to talk me into being a nuke, which is laughable. I'm not going on a nuclear submarine in the bottom of the ocean with a bunch of dudes, is what I would say. So they kept offering me all these different things, tech things because I scored well. And they're like, what about they're like, how about a gas turbine, which is like the hovercrafts and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, they go on the shore. And I'm like, yeah, they go on the shore, but they go on bigger ships. So you're just trying to get me on a bigger ship that is going to send out a little ship that goes on land for a little while. Absolutely not. So I basically went to lunch, said, I'm going to come back from lunch and give me something, or I'm going to go talk to the Marines and the Army. Come back from lunch, and they asked me, because I was big, hey, you want to be a SEAL? And no one knew what a SEAL. This is before the books, before the movies, or anything. And I slid the piece of paper over, and it sounded like a James Bond novel. And I'm like, why didn't you show me this first? Boom, gone. So 6 years, dive fair program. Went to Buds. First time through, got hurt, got rolled to a hospital for 18 months because I was a corpsman, because I was injured. Went back, classed up a class 203, went through Hell Week with a stress fracture that turned into a complete fracture, and graduated with 205. So graduated in 1996. The whole time I was in the pipeline. And then I was a corpsman. And so I went to Fort Bragg and all this other stuff where I picked up, became a special ops medic as well as a SEAL and so on and so forth. And during this time, you know, I thought I could fill the hole in my chest. That's the God-shaped hole that we all have. In the beginning, you thought you'd fill it with family by default. When your family let you down and your family abandoned you or does whatever, then if you're a guy, you try to fill it with women. And John Eldridge talks a lot about this in Wild at Heart. And then you get your heart broke, and then you go from the wounded to the serial wounder, which is what I did. So I tried to fill my God-shaped hole in my heart with women and with camaraderie, with adrenaline. What you'll find out is that nothing fills the God-shaped hole except for God. So this whole time, I'm a complete garbage of a man, hanging out with my bros, and sure, I was a good friend, but for the girls I was with, broken relationships, lying, cheating, I broke every trust that you could ever do. And just was a terrible toilet. That's the only thing I could say. I was garbage because I was so afraid of being hurt, so afraid of being abandoned. So I was a cheater, horrible man. And found a friendship and a camaraderie in the teams. But what you find out is that all men betray, all men fail. And anything the government does, it does poorly. So if you're counting on the government to be your friend, you're sadly mistaken. So it wasn't long before I realized what the military was. And you can remember, I was a broken individual still. I was still selfish to the extreme, still had a terrible work ethic unless I thought it was important. And then I had the best work ethic. That's why that teaching I did not too long ago, the how you do anything is how you do everything, was so convicting to me. Because I could be the best of the world at something if I cared about it, but if I didn't care about it all, and just whatever. And I could fight. I was always a good fighter. I was into boxing and taekwondo, and then street fighting, and then MMA, and so on and so forth. And I was a strong guy. I was always one of the strongest, if not the strongest guy around. My prime, I was benching 500, squatting 700, deadlifting 700, and running a sub 6-minute mile. That's pretty elite stuff right there. Of course, I was on PEDs. But so I went to, did my deployments. I deployed to, Europe, South America, Southeast Asia, Iraq, Mediterranean, Kosovo, and was just completely lost. I remember coming home from my deployment, and my brother Ryan died. My aunt, who was really close to me, also had an accidental overdose and died. And I went to my brother's funeral, and all of his friends were already dead. None of them were there. I was just so mad when I found out that, because I just thought they didn't show. There was a complete class of kids just wiped out from the opioid epidemic. So I said, okay, that's it. I'm tired of going to sandboxes and making other people's countries safer. Wow. Who hate me. And so I decided to get out at 16 years and become Boston cop. Now, my marriage at the time was imploding. We were going to go our separate ways. And I went to Boston, and she was going to go to Charlottesville. We decided to give it a second go. I'm up in Boston, just being a turd. I'm Boston PD now, on a motorcycle, on the SWAT team, and I'm just a turd. Then my son Connor was born. Didn't want kids, never wanted kids in my life ever. My ex thought it might help fix us. Stupid, should have never. But did that, and we have a son named Connor that is of him very much, like my kryptonite. And that took, oh, I've totally missed this. So we were in Panama City at this time. I'm sorry. So while I'm getting ready to get out, I'm in Iraq. And again, I'm sorry, confusing timelines here. And I come back from when I'm over in Iraq, I pass a kidney stone on my birthday. And they go in and they, doing ultrasounds and all this stuff, and they basically think that I have cancer. And they tell me, I can go home from Iraq. And I'm like, no, I'm going to finish my tour. And then when I get back, I will deal with it. So I go back and they're like, hey, listen, we're not sure how long you're going to be around. This looks pretty aggressive. We're going to send you to shore duty to figure it out. So they send me to shore duty in Panama City, Florida. And, and I start partying like a rock star, because the last thing I want to do is shrivel up and be one of those 68-pound cancer patients. And again, so while I'm there, someone asked me, well, why don't you go to God? And I'm like, if I beat this, I'll go to God. I don't want to go to God weak. How arrogant, how stupid, how foolish. This also brings me to the part when I was going through Hell Week and Buds. I remember all these guys praying around for strength for the strength to make it through the day. God to protect them and get through the training. I get so mad. I get so darn mad. No one's doing this but you, right? And I'd make fun of them, and I would shred their logic all the time. I remember we'd be skydiving, and my legs would be shaking because I hate heights. And I had to pretend that I was all excited and jamped up so no one would see that I was shaking. So I'd act like I was all excited, jump out of the plane completely horrified, and then do what do what you got to do, which is shoot and fly and land, crash, whatever. And I just remember thinking, wow, if they're right, when they die and they jump, no wonder they're not scared, because if they hit the ground, they go to heaven and paradise. Whereas if I hit the ground and I'm right, I'm just worm food. So anyways, I get exposed to a book in Panama City, Florida. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. And this book was the first time in my life at 37 years, 36 years at this time, no, 37, where I heard the case for creationism. In the public schools, they don't teach creationism. They only teach evolution, Big Bang, and they don't teach alternative views, which would be creationism, a creator. And all of my arguments fell away in that book. It's just so well done by Frank Turek and Norman Geisler, I think is how you say his name. And I was just like, wow. And of course, God put someone there named Travis, who was there to answer all my questions. So I became there, after I beat cancer, or after I was misdiagnosed with cancer. I became a Christian. Now, I was what many people are. Most dangerous thing in the world. I heard all this stuff that people told me about the Bible. So I created my unique JCanity is what I'll call it. It's the first time I'm using that term. But it's basically your religion of one, where you get to pick and choose what sins you want to do because Jesus is loving and God is loving and he loves you just the way you are. And he's love, love, love. And, whatever. And I'm like, if I could just repent before I go, I'm good. Which am I truly repenting then? No. So I didn't have a biblical worldview. I didn't live it out. I didn't have a changed heart. But my sanctification started happening. God took away my angry satanic music from me. Went to go to the gym to, bench a lot of weight, and I put on my favorite band, Slayer, and I put on This All, a horrible song to live to, and I couldn't listen to it. I sat there for 15 minutes hitting skip and just turned off my radio. And that has been a struggle of mine to this day, where now I make my own heavy metal music. It's all Christian based. And I'm going to release my first playlist here soon. I made it with AI. It's awesome. And I can't wait to share that with you. So I am now in Boston. My son is born with autism, and I'm a baby Christian. Now, I did happen to go to one of the best churches around at the time for what I needed. It was Park Street Church under Gordon Hugenberger. He was a brilliant mind in Christianity. One of the, wrote, I think, the commentary notes for judges in your ESV. Brilliant man, became friends with him. Gordon. And he was exactly what I needed at that time to shore up my faith that the Bible could be reliable. But what he or no one could prepare me for was having a special needs child and a bad marriage, completely out of whack. And it was horrible. I walked away from my faith. I couldn't not become a Christian. I couldn't become an atheist again because I knew somebody, like I saw DNA and I knew a code required a coder. So if a code requires a coder, then I knew somebody had to build it all. And I just didn't know anymore if Christianity was the right thing. I was just so angry again. It was an abandonment wound all over again. How could you do this to me? Woe is me party, and left that job as a Boston SWAT cop. Went to go become a bodyguard for a billionaire. 30 days on, 30 days off in Charlottesville, Virginia, where we had friends and family. And the Virginia Institute of Autism was there. We needed it. You'll say marriage imploded. And I basically, shelved my Christianity. But I opened up a gym and I started Trident Shield after Sandy Hook happened in 2012, and I started doing active shooter. I started doing like military preparedness stuff for guys who wanted to go to the military, and ran a gym, and it was really the best time of my life. I love the camaraderie of the gym environment. It's such a great discipling ground. I'd love to do that again here on the property someday. Just a Christian gym. And so a friend of mine, Mike, didn't give up on me. Like I was doing a lot of okay things. Like I would let heroin addicts work out at the gym in the morning and they'd be throwing up everywhere, but I'd pair them with a military guy or, with somebody else to try to get them, because those lifestyles were incompatible. And I had a lot of veterans with PTSD showing up at my gym, really broken guys. And Mike kept trying to get me to go RW, which is Operation Restored Warrior, which was made to stop veterans from killing themselves. And Mike's like, you got to go. I'm like, dude, I'm not suicidal. I'm like the last thing out of it. I'm the most selfish person on the planet. All I want to do is like live life to the fullest, experience anything, He's like, you need to go. And I'm like, no. So Mike waited and never gave up. I owe him for that. He came to me one day, and my marriage has imploded at this point. Dating Lauren, and I remember telling Lauren, because we would talk, we were dating in the beginning, about micro macro evolution, because she was indoctrinated. She was indoctrinated in the cult of atheism in Maine. And it was profound and it was great. But I told her I can't walk around with 1 foot in the Christian grave, or 1 foot in Christianity, kinda, and one on the agnostic side. Mike came to me one day very excited, and he said, "Guess what?" And I said, "What?" He said, "ORW is in Lake Tahoe. You're going. I bought you a ticket." And I said, "Well, if it's in Lake Tahoe, I'd go to prison in Lake Tahoe, so I'll go." And Lauren and I are going pretty steady at this point. Lauren has already proposed to me at this point, and I don't think I proposed to her yet until she proposed to me because her parents didn't agree with our relationship, et cetera, and to save me from having to go to her father, who hated me. So I went to RW and I met the masculine Jesus. I got healed. I identified my abandonment wound. And ever since that day, I've been walking with Christ. I found out the lie of feminized Christianity that I had been indoctrinated, that I was only aware of. I discovered, instead of a wimpy, pathetic Jesus that I was disdainful of, I found the most powerful being in the entire universe. And I went from never wanting kids to, once my heart was healed, immediately wanting kids. And I called Lauren and freaked her out because she didn't want kids. She was an atheist. Of course, she didn't want kids. And I told her I wanted to have as many kids as we could, and probably almost blew up our relationship right there because she was freaking out. Came back from that, and my whole mission was to get Lauren saved. So I started a small group in our house with a bunch of Christian friends. And after a year, Lauren, I had just about given up on Lauren. I came to her and said, you're so darn stubborn, which my wife is the most stubborn person on the planet. Like, how do you're never going to give up. You're never going to become a Christian. And she's like, how do you know I'm not a Christian already? How do you know I'm not already believing one? And I'm like, are you? And she's like, yeah. So all I had to do was reverse psychology sooner. But a year later, we were both baptized on a stage in Charlottesville together. And God gifted me Lauren's heart day one. I said, I will fight for this woman for the rest of my life. I will never betray her, unlike everyone else. You trust me with this, I called her my Valkyrie, pulled me from the grave of a dead life. I will fight for her, and I will honor her every day of my life. And I've held to that. We've been together, got married 2016, so we've been married 10 years now. It's crazy how fast time goes. I think we've been together 12 years now. I guess. I don't really know the timeline. And you would think that's the end of the story. Dream girl, married, saved, SEAL, my own company and all that stuff, but it's not. This is the part of why we have this ministry in this church. You see, I went in the military to become a man because I didn't have anyone to disciple me. Like, well, the military will make a man out of you. How many people have heard that? No, they don't make a man out of you. You don't. Only your father or other men can do that. other Christian men can impart that identity on you. And Lauren was never discipled appropriately. And because of that, both of us suffered. Our families suffered horribly to the point of near extinction. So we go church shopping now that I'm saved and Lauren's saved, and we go church shopping, and it's awful. It takes me almost, I don't know how many years to find a masculine pastor. I find it during COVID up in Maine. A friend of mine tells me we were going up, COVID hit. My company, Trident Shield, took a 90% loss to revenue because everything closed. And we were in big trouble. So we put our house on the market, figuring it would sell in a week or two. It was beautiful. Mountain views, 7-step waterfall on the property, 5 acres, just amazing house. My favorite house so far. Ever. Not favorite land, but favorite house. Go up to Maine. A friend of mine's, you got to check out this guy, Ken Graves, and I met him. And it was everything I was looking for. He was the spiritual father that I needed. He had a voice as deep as like 2 mountains grinding together. He was covered in scars from a hard life. Not a cop, not a military guy, but he was very kinetic. He grappled and did martial arts and was around hard men. Went into a prison ministry at 16. Ran away from home and did that. And what I saw was a man who was so authentic and so real. No posing. He was the most effective discipler I've ever seen, to where he was taking drug addicts and turning them into pastors. He was taking prostitutes and turning them into worship leaders. I'm like, this man is doing everything that he showed me, that I could be masculine, that I could be a pastor and I could be masculine. I don't know if I wanted to be a pastor, but I didn't have a heart for drug addicts. Everyone helps drug addicts. Everyone helps all these people. That wasn't where my heart was. My heart was for the guys and the gals who tried to do something better than themselves, serve their country, their city, their town, veterans, first responders, and who broke themselves doing it. So I wanted to come down here. And I also didn't want to regenerate a bunch of addicts, which you can throw a rock in any direction, and have 42 different, nonprofits that do that. I came here to start a ministry to do what I didn't have, to have a discipler in chief, a father that would fight for you and teach you everything you need to know. So we started what's called Patriot Crusader Mission, which is still, I think, our name with the IRS. We changed it locally, and we're still filing paperwork to change the original, 501c3's name over. So if you ever see that name and donation forms, that's what the goal was, to take patriots, train them up in Jesus to become crusaders and send them on a mission. Patriot, Crusader, mission. But, everyone was too intimidated by the name. Social media crushed us because we were nationalist, religious terrorists in their minds. So this is during COVID, and everything I did would go nowhere. It would go nowhere. And so we changed it to Christian Warrior Mission because I felt convicted I didn't want country before God. So Christian Warrior Mission. And that's what we are. That's what we'll stay. So we went to Maine, and that blew up. Maine was secular, and we needed our house to sell, and we were paying a ridiculous amount of rent to live up there. God's good. And the only house in the entire state of Maine, which Maine is a huge state if you don't know, that would rent to us, our 3 dogs and our kid at the time, was like 5 minutes from Ken Graves, who was the pastor that I really wanted to get to know and became good friends with. So to make this a little bit shorter, nothing Nothing worked in Maine. And finally, I went to Ken heartbroken and said, I can't afford to stay here much longer. He's like, well, let's just put out a fleece, Jay. If you're meant to be here, you're meant to be here. And our house didn't sell. We went home totally defeated. And, but I had no peace in Virginia. I knew we had to get out of there. I knew that Virginia was going to flip blue and become hell on earth. And I wanted to get help for them because we had the best economy. I mean, the best housing market in the history of the world. And just some miraculous things happened. I got hired by Mike Lindell, which I wasn't even looking. He gave me a great job. He really took care of me and did great things. Allowed me to get this home here. We found this house. We bought it sight unseen. It turned into everything we needed. I was praying for confirmation. I go to the closing documents. I go up 3 lines, and Billy Graham used to own this. Right. So I'm like, okay, we're here. Come here. We, want everyone to know that we're different. So we put the word out. We knew like 2 people in town. We put the word out that we were going to carry a 600-pound cross up a muddy hill, a mountain, and plant it at the top and claim this land for God. And we had 70 people show up, and a lot of Calvary Chapel people showed up, and I'm forever thankful for that. Got it up there. And my plan was, because of Ken, was to fold into Calvary Chapel. I went to the one here and was hoping for it, but went to a conference called the Big South Conference, and by a guy named Sandy. And it was basically a pastor's conference. So you had all the pastors, head pastors and assistant pastors from around the country there. There was probably 100 Calvary Chapels there, maybe more. And the cowardice I saw there that day, I ended up walking out of the conference and not going back. They didn't name Ken, but they attacked him and others like him. They went after another pastor who I was fond of at the time by name. And I saw pre-mill dispensationalism, the evil it does when you have pastors getting up on stage and saying it's not our job to change the American culture. And like, the culture is the church's report card. They said, hey, it doesn't matter. Don't do anything because we're all out of here any minute anyways when the rapture's coming. So come up on stage and we'll do the rapture dance or whatever. And I just walked out and wanted no part of it. So now I'm here and I'm finding Reformed doctrine. I'm watching R.C. Sproul's, I'm watching Vodi Bakum, watching James White, Jeff Durbin, Paul Washer. And I love what they're saying. I find Doug Wilson, I absolutely love what he's saying. Love the Reformed theology. You start going to these Reformed churches, they're dead. It's like there's no life in them. They're so ice cold, and I wanted to like them with all that I had. For my business, I wanted to like them because I was doing a lot of work for them, and I just wanted to like it so bad. But I walked in and I was completely repulsed by the heavy liturgy and the ice cold nature of the churches. And so I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be fire-breathing pastors in every corner here. Nope. Everybody's either crazy and charismatic, a concert church with no depth, 1,000,000 miles wide with 1 inch of depth, ice cold, or they're cowards. They're culturally irrelevant. They won't preach and call it like it is. You can't be a Democrat and a Christian. You can't support abortion and be a Christian. You can't. If you think you can, you're lost. Sorry, I fear for your soul. I'm completely horrified for your soul. Only God knows what he's going to do with you, but it's not looking good. You can't affirm that and support it with your tax dollars and support transgenderism and support all these other things and think that it's okay. And if a pastor won't do that, I won't be there. Not going to be there because he's lying by omission. So You search everywhere and everyone's a coward, crazy, or ice cold. So we start a home church. And I fill it a couple times and I empty it a couple times. Hard preaching. And it's just me. Lauren smoked with the farm, the cows, the kids, and we're not getting any fellowship, you know. And all I wanted to make was a theologically sound Reformed theology church with Calvary style music that wasn't ice cold, that had a ton of fellowship and was very similar to what Ken was doing up in Maine, but just for everyday people. You know, we built this farm, 44 acres farm, to share with people, so that if you couldn't afford 44 acres and you didn't have time to be a cow, you could come here and part-time it with us. I thought everyone wanted to do it. Nope, everyone doesn't want to do it. Everybody likes to talk a game, but nobody likes to do hard stuff. So we bounced around for a while, and I would constantly checking out churches, and I would do our own stuff. I realized that my kids were lonely. My wife didn't have anyone to hang out with. I was lonely. I didn't have any men to hang out with. So we started checking out churches and going to churches. What I found is there's nothing out there. And the closest would be probably Mark Driscoll, but he's charismatic and crazy. And he thinks there's a demon under every rock. But Jeff Durbin would be another one that I probably would be heavily aligned with. My theology is 1689 Baptist Confession. So we pivoted from a church and ministry, right? Meaning that we were mainly a church. We were doing Sunday worship. Sometimes we were doing Wednesdays and Sunday for a time, daily Bible studies, et cetera, to try to be the church that people would want to come to. And almost all of our followers and all the monetary, support was from out of state. And then we decided to become a big ministry, small church, where we do our warrior church on Tuesday night. We don't compete with local churches. We come alongside them. And we train men to protect, provide, and disciple, and women to support, nurture, and protect. We pour into the family so that churches get better members that can go in there and be force multipliers within the church. Since we've been doing that, it's been going great. Which leads us to today, day one of the crusade. So what are my challenges today? What are my sin patterns? What am I still fighting? Well, I kind of get lost in the story, but my superpower for my whole life has been anger. If I could just get angry enough, I could do anything. I could run faster than anyone. I could lift more than anyone. I could, rage through the pain. I could overcome it. It got me through SEAL training. It got me through terrifying fear. It got me through loneliness. It got me through everything. But the problem is anger burns both ways. Yes, it burns your enemies, but it burns you alive inside. So I still have anger I struggle with. And I've had a lot of injuries. I'm a 100% disabled vet. My back is garbage. My knee is replaced. My other knee is garbage. Probably needs to be replaced. I've got a lot of stuff, but I have a struggle with my fitness. I get so busy. I am a CEO of a security and consulting company. I am a pastor of a church and ministry and church now. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a homesteader. And I go to bed every day with more things to do than I got done. So the list just grows. The easiest way to make up time is to not go to the gym for 2 hours and just work and try to get a few more things done. Also, because my family was not Christian, and was a pretty unhealthy environment. Looking back, yes, they love me. Yes, they did the best they could do. I'm not, not judging them. But my family expressed love with food. So guess what we did when we wanted comfort? We went to food. So take an elite athlete, can run sub 6-minute miles, bench 500 pounds, make him broke so he can't do the things that he once used to do, then make him overly busy, and then make him lonely, suffering, failing. What's he going to do? Go to his comfort. What's the comfort? And so I'm here now. Here now. Tomorrow I'm going to weigh in. I'm going to post it in the group where I'm at with photos. I am on a holy crusade, and my number one challenge is my fitness right now. I still battle my sin patterns. I'm still grouchy. My wife can tell you that. I can be an escapist. When things were bad for a time and I was in a lot of pain and that, I would lose myself. Instead of digging my way out, I lose myself in binge watching movies like everyone else, or video games. Video games are my jam. No, I don't do any of that. So I'm not ever preaching at you from a place of perfection. I am preaching at you from a place of mutual pain that you have. My battles may be different than yours, and we all have different battles and different struggles, but I have them too. And I know how bad they hurt. And I know how bad it feels to suck, to fail. I know how it is to look at your family and your wife, who you adore, and to fail them every day, even though you don't want to. So today is day one of the crusade for dominion. The first year of the crusade is a dominion of self. Getting the plank out of our eye before we get the speck out of anyone else's eye. Now, finances are also a struggle for me. But, God is blessing us. So if you want to come work with other imperfect people are going to be honest. I never see a pastor get up there and speak specifically on the things they struggle with. It's always the most pathetic, broad examples. You want honesty, you want vulnerability, you'll find it here. I'll go to war for you, but I need you to go to war for me and hold me accountable. This crusade is not going to explode like a cannon fire. It's going to start as a snowflake on the top of a mountain. And then we get enough of them, and it turns into a snowball. The snowball turns into a snow slide. That slide turns into an avalanche. That avalanche covers everything. That's what we're going to do here. So that's who you're fighting with. I've broken every sin there is. I'm a cheater, and I'm an adulterer, I'm a liar, you name it. Killer, you name it. But I am made pure as snow in Jesus Christ. So again, you're not going to get white-collar theology here. You're going to get frontline theology here. If you want frontline theology and application, you're in the right place. If you want to pontificate on 40-syllable words and theories, go somewhere else. You want guys to lock shields with you, to bleed with you, to get in the mud with you, to pick you up, to hold you accountable, to call you at 2 a.m, to show up and knock at your door, whatever it is when you're doing something wrong or you need help. That's what we're building here. That's what we're building here. So that's my very long-winded came in right an hour-long testimony. I'm sure I missed a lot. If you've watched all my testimonies, just some things come to mind and some and not on others. Just know that there's not a sin I haven't done. And, but I'm way better than I used to be. I deliberately pursue Christ with all my heart now and have been for a very long time. So I love you. I hope this helps. God bless you. Bye.